have Khenpo Sodaje with us. He will talk to us about some of the ideas in Tibetan Buddhism. Since Khenpo is visiting Beijing this time and is able to come to Peking University, I feel that this is a truly special and auspicious opportunity. I was just thinking, in the academic world right now, the research and the investigate on Tibetan Buddhism is still not sufficient. Tibetan Buddhism contains many truly outstanding and profound teachings, and its teaching philosophy. Currently, the academic community doesn't understand this very well, and there are shortcomings in teaching. Another point about the Tibetan Buddhism is deeply connected with Tibetan culture itself, truly. In fact, we don't know much about the relationship between them as well. Thirdly, I think we have a Khenpo here who is a highly accomplished master in terms of spiritual practice. He can discuss Buddhist thought, which is actually introducing Buddhism to us from another perspective. This might be completely different from how we university professors talk about Buddhism. At Peking University, we value multiculturalism, inclusiveness. Our students should possess a sense of tolerance as well as a passion for academic pursuits. So today, we are truly honored to have invited the Khenpo Peking University Philosophy and to our Institute for the Study of Religious Culture to give a lecture. In fact, to a large extent, this event was initiated by some students who are passionate about the study of Tibetan Buddhism. It was mainly their initiative. I think we must truly cherish the enthusiasm of these students. This enthusiasm encourages us teachers. Most of us teachers mainly study Chinese Buddhism and Indian Buddhism. So student enthusiasm motivates us teachers to strengthen our studies. Today, both teachers and the students have gathered for Khenpo's lecture. Now, let's welcome him with a round of applause.
I am very pleased to be here today at the Department of Philosophy at Peking University, together with the teachers and students to explore some of the key principles and teachings of Tibetan Buddhism related to emptiness and Buddha nature. You could also say that I am here to share a few of my own humble insights with everyone. As for myself, I can also be considered someone who is engaged in education, though my role is actually a little bit different. I'm also, in fact, a teacher. I have now been teaching and transmitting the Dharma for nearly over 20 years. I believe that the professors, teachers, and students present here at Peking University, most of you are also engaged in this kind of educational work. You are people who take on the great, honorable, and sacred responsibility of teaching and nurturing others. So occasions like today, where we come together to discuss and learn collectively, are very necessary. This is actually also my first time here, Peking University. I sense the academic mood, especially within Peking University's Chan Studies Society and the Gengdu Society, where many students and teachers have conducted very profound research on religion. Nowadays, there are many opportunities for everyone to communicate with each other. In fact, communication between people is extremely important. I feel that as Tibetan monks who study and research Tibetan Buddhism, there is much for us to learn from Chinese Buddhism, as well as from the meaningful scientific and technological knowledge found in modern universities. At the same time, we also feel that students and teachers at modern universities should also turn their attention to the profound aspects of Tibetan Buddhism and the deep fields of other religions. By learning from and understanding each other like this, In fact, when it comes to our views on our life, values and worldviews, there's still a lot of things that we need to understand and learn about. So I think during today's discussion with everyone here, I would like to share some of my own understanding of Buddhism and would like to share it with all of you. At the same time, we can also engage with each other through questions together. Everyone, usually in their hearts, whatever uncertainties or things you don't understand, we can learn together. Through discussion and research like this, many of the doubts in our minds can be brought up and analyze them. Buddhists have this kind of habit. When we first start learning about Buddhism, we have a lot of doubts and want to ask many questions. But past the point, there are no more questions left. Eventually, we don't even feel like asking anymore. There is such a process. So I think among the scholars and talented individuals from the Department of Religious Studies and the Department of Philosophy at Peking University, some scholars and talents in the humanities should be very talented and wisdom. And I believe your wisdom is also very sharp. So when we all study together, it should be helpful and lead to progress for everyone. Therefore, I would first like to briefly talk about the importance of studying the concept of emptiness in our time. As we all know, all the humanity has now officially entered the 21st century. Looking at it from a historical perspective, our material civilization can be said to have developed to an unprecedented level. We could put it that way. From the end of the 20th century to the beginning of the 21st century, it should be said that this is, in human history, an era in which science, technology, and the economy have all developed at the fastest pace ever. However, when it comes to our inner world, our ethics and morality, we truly have to admit that there has indeed been some decline, downward trend. This is true for traditional culture in China, in the Han region. As you all know, if we look back in the human history, Confucianism in the Han region, that is, the teachings of Confucius and Mencius, the thought of Confucius and Mencius was highly valued in the Han region. Moreover, it played an incredible role in shaping human moral standards. But as everyone knows today, as we all know, during 1960s and 70s, traditional Chinese culture, especially during the Cultural Revolution, suffered historic destruction. After that, although there are now many insightful people who want to restore our excellent traditional culture nowadays, it is just like a critically ill patient who cannot recover immediately. Therefore, I think that for our students and teachers, on the one hand, it is extremely important to value our own traditional culture nowadays. As the professor just mentioned, we should now not only be well versed in theory, but also put it into practice in our actions. Certain virtues, the way we interact with others and handle matters, these behaviors must be regulated. Otherwise, I think that if university students lack some basic aspects of character, if they fail to meet standards in their conduct and interactions, then no matter how advanced your knowledge is, or how sharp your intellect may be, in reality, you will encounter difficulties when you enter the workforce or society. That is why so many people all around the world are especially drawn to Tibetan Buddhism. When I often communicating with many people, both domestically and internationally, about the Tibetan Buddhism and to talk about this topic, nowadays, Tibetan Buddhism exists in a very perfect and complete state. Tibetan Buddhism is based on the pure teachings that originated 200-500 years ago during the Buddha's era. Although these teachings have gone through historical changes and endured many twists and turns, but in essence, they have remained completely intact and still exist today. As a result, whether it's Western intellectuals or Eastern scholars, the reason why everyone's attention or curiosity is turning toward Tibet, the biggest reason would be Buddhist thoughts. In other words, the most original teachings have been preserved up to now. So regarding Buddhist thought, we all know the Buddha spoke the Dharma 84,000. When the 84,000 Dharma wheels are summarized, they are grouped into the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel. That is to say, the first turning is called the Dharma wheel of the 4 Noble Truths. And the second turning is the Dharma wheel of emptiness. The third turning of the Dharma wheel in ordinary language, it is the Dharma wheel about Tathagata or Buddha nature. If we were to discuss all the teachings on emptiness, it's the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Many Prajnaparamita teachings to cover, it will be impossible to explain everything in just a few words during such a short time today. But if we summarize it using simpler language to conclude the emptiness, I think the best treatise for studying Prajnaparamita, personally speaking, in my opinion, is that all of you should study Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's root verses on the middle way in the future. Because of root verses on the middle way, it employs an extremely profound and subtle method of dialectical reasoning to determine that all phenomena are empty. This ideology in our Tibetan Buddhism, there are different schools such as the Gelug and Nyingma traditions, but in fact, all of them need to study the root verses on the middle way. I look at the history of Han areas. Although historically there is no, especially extensively studying the Madhyamika method, in reality, throughout the generations, the great masters have all studied the root verses on the middle way, as well as the 12-gate treatises and some of the other treatises. Therefore, for all of you present here, when you want to study the teachings on emptiness, you must first use your own wisdom to investigate that all phenomena are empty. The emptiness of all phenomena is not just something to be said verbally. It should be said that Madhyamaka has many methods of reasoning. Among these, Madhyamaka has 5 common major lines of reasoning. Reasoning is usually called cause, the cause and effect. So when reasoning, we use the Vajra Splinters argument. Vajra Splinters argument is a method of analytical investigation. That is to say, all phenomena are neither self-arisen nor other-arisen, nor are they arisen from both, nor do they arise without cause. How can they arise in any of these ways? If something were to arise from itself, then it would become endless and infinite. If it were to arise from something else, then things like light would also appear in darkness and so on. This method of reasoning is very meticulous. In Chandrakirti's entry into the middle way, it is explained in great detail. If the rising of all phenomena is absent, their existence is absent too. If their existence is not established, then their end also does not exist. Therefore, now everyone should, after understanding this Madhyamaka reasoning, determine causally that all things are empty. This is a method of reasoning in the middle way. There is also another method of reasoning in Madhyamaka called the neither one nor many reasoning. Neither one nor two are established per this reasoning. If two are not established, all phenomena more than two are also not established. If one person is not established, 10 people cannot be established. The concept of 10 is established based on 1. So why is 1 not established? Because what we call 1 is also just an illusion. For instance, when we say one person, that refers to a single self. This self is nothing more than a conceptual fabrication made by people's deluded discrimination. If you truly analyze it, we usually think that the self exists. But when we examine it, is the head the self, the hand, the foot? When you investigate each part, you cannot find any true nature of the self. Then you realize, oh, people are always just clinging to the aggregation of the five skandhas as the self. In reality, the true essence of the self does not exist. So through this method of observation, one can determine that the true nature of all phenomena is emptiness. The best method for discerning the emptiness of true nature is the adornment of the middle way. I previously translated Mitham Rinpoche's commentary on the adornment of the middle way. The reasoning in it is explained in great detail with clarity and precision, analyzing the cause of being and non-being, thereby breaking down the cause of being and non. The main focus is on analyzing from the effects perspective. The existent should not arise, nor should the non-existent arise. If something exists, it needn't arise as it already does. If something does not exist, it cannot arise show, could something non-existent arise. If such production were possible, then even the son of a barren woman could generate substantial things and so on. This is the way to analyze it. Actually, this is discussed quite extensively in the root verses on the middle way. Another observation is fourfold refutation of causation. Fourfold refutation of causation is in treatise on the two truths of the middle way as well. This analysis method, whether one cause can generate multiple effects, whether one cause can generate one effect, and whether multiple causes can produce multiple effects, whether multiple causes can produce one effect. We can observe in this way. There's also the cause of dependent origination, which is very important, the great cause of dependent origination. It also discussed in root verses on the middle way in the Ratnakuta Sutra, Sutra Angama Sutra, and Avatasaka Sutra. These texts discuss the cause of dependent origination, this cause of dependent origination. We know that all phenomena are indeed determined to be empty in nature. However, when you analyze them, everything is emptiness and nothing at all can be obtained. Nothing can be found. We often think our bodies, our lives, our emotions, as well as the mountains, rivers, and earth outside, and all phenomena truly exist. But in reality, this is just an illusion arising from our deluded perceptions. If you truly observe them with wisdom, you will find that all things, everything in existence, all phenomena are ultimately unreachable. I think this kind of realization must be an extremely profound and deeply meaningful Dharma. This principle is also explained in Master Tsongkhapa's Praise to Dependent Origination. In this world, only one being, our Master Shakyamuni Buddha, taught such a Dharma of dependent origination and emptiness. Apart from him, although there are non-Buddhist schools and other religions, they have spoken about emptiness, but this kind of emptiness is merely a form of simple emptiness. Back when Shakyamuni Buddha was alive, there were also quite a few non-Buddhist traditions, and they too talked about emptiness. But their understanding of emptiness was not ultimate. So all the teachers and students present here regarding the understanding of emptiness, we must never mistake so-called emptiness as non-existence. Non-existence, which in the root verses on the middle way, is described as one extreme. If it is an extreme here, then whether it is the extreme of existence or non-existence, both are forms of clinging to true existence. If one clings to true existence, then liberation would not be attained, and suffering will arise. Just as it is stated in the 60 verses of reasoning, if one admits the existence of real entities, great greed and anger will arise. If you accept the existence of a truly existent thing, then strong attachment and aversion will inevitably arise. If you have attachment and aversion and cling to them, you will commit negative karma because of them. If you create negative karma, then you will inevitably continue to revolve in samsara. If you remain in samsara, you cannot attain liberation. Therefore, anyone who wishes for liberation must aspire to the Dharma of emptiness. This Dharma of emptiness is the gateway to the great empty, from the way of the Bodhisattva. Therefore, those who wish to end suffering should awaken the wisdom of emptiness. If you want to extinguish all suffering, both your own and others, then you must awaken this wisdom of emptiness and selflessness within yourself. So here we must truly understand the meaning and value of emptiness. Furthermore, when we talk about emptiness, you should not mistake it for mere or singular emptiness. If it were just a singular emptiness, that would be the lowest level in Buddhism, the Hinayana. Even in the Hinayana, they actually consider that mere emptiness is actually just a part of the selflessness of person. Why do we say this? As everyone knows, the Hinayana realizes the selflessness of persons, but he admitted that the last very subtle, they accept that this subtle fundamental particle exists. They believe that if this extremely subtle particle did not exist, then all phenomena, all things in the world of forms could not arise from nothing, and nothing could arise from complete emptiness. They worry that the origin of all phenomena must have an especially subtle basis, either by using the most subtle instant in the world or by using the most subtle type of particle among all particles. Indeed, they believe that such phenomena exist. I often read some modern physics, and in the knowledge of physics, there are indeed some views that are quite similar to those of the Hinayana. Everyone here is well aware that in physics and quantum mechanics, probably in the 19th century, during Newton's time, the smallest unit was basically considered to be the molecule at first in the field of science. Later, in the 20th century, molecules were further divided into atoms. Atoms were then divided into atomic nuclei, electrons, neutrons, and protons. Eventually, it is said that now they are divided into quarks, subquarks, and so on. As for the school of physics, it should also have two factions. One faction believes that matter can be divided endlessly. So they believe that even quarks should be further divided endlessly into what they call sub-quarks. There is indeed such a viewpoint that division can go on infinitely. There is also another perspective which holds that there must be a smallest indivisible unit of matter. Many physicists believe that this is called a vacuum, or the field currently is considered to be the field. Fields such as the electron field, quantum field, magnetic field, and so on. A field is actually a form of energy. The vacuum is a state where nothing exists at all, an utterly empty realm. This is what is called the vacuum. The vacuum and the field are considered to be the fundamental source of all phenomena. If this did not exist, then combining many tiny particles would be impossible. If they could not combine, then the origin of protons and neutrons would not exist. So now, quite a few physicists believe that there must be a smallest unit. If it did not exist, the entire world as we know it would become something truly and particularly terrifying. But from the perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, there is no need to be afraid. Understanding emptiness, independent origination, all phenomena for everyone, it really shouldn't be any difficulty. However, I think in the Hinayana tradition, there is a worry that if all phenomena are empty, then nothing would exist. They believe that everything should have a point of origin. This is actually quite similar to the view held by modern physics. The physicist Descartes once said, he said, "Are we really dreaming right now, or are we not dreaming?" After the observation, he ultimately couldn't figure it out. He said that all phenomena, in all their diversity and variety when observed, none of them actually hold up. But right before our eyes, everything undeniably exists without deception. This is nothing more than a devil deceiving us, making us unable to tell what is real and what is fake. He once said something like this. So if we understand some of the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, there's really no need to worry about which devil is playing tricks on us. There's absolutely no need. And why is that? Because the fundamental nature of all phenomena does not exist. Things can manifest within emptiness. If their essence truly existed, then in the realm of inherent existence, they could not appear. Of course, this principle is still very profound, so I think all of you especially need to study Madhyamaka and the concept of emptiness. This study is very important. If you do not gain a thorough understanding, I feel that many areas of knowledge in life, so at least for me personally, the value of other fields of knowledge compared to the study of Madhyamaka and emptiness is indeed vastly different. Therefore, in our daily lives, we should understand what kind of material the entire world is actually made of and what kind of dependent origination